Hello, I'm Perrin Beatty, President and CEO of the Canadian Chamber of Commerce, and welcome to the Business of Business. Throughout the pandemic, we'll be bringing to you a series of conversations with Canadian business leaders and experts to talk about how Canada's responding to the pandemic and what lessons we can learn. There's no sector that is more important throughout all of this than Canada's banking sector. We're very fortunate today to have Chris Fowler, who's the President and CEO of CWB Financial Group. Chris has been with the bank for the last 20 years, and since 2013, he's been CEO. Welcome to the Business of Business, Chris.
Thank you, Perrin. Great to be here.
Now, many people don't know about CWB, which stands for Canadian Western Bank. Can you tell us a little about the bank itself and what makes it unique in the whole of Canada's banking system?
Definitely. We are a different bank compared to the others in that our core focus is commercial banking. We did originate in the sort of late 1980s. We're an amalgamation of two smaller banks. One was the Bank of Alberta, one was Western Pacific Bank, one out of Edmonton, one out of Victoria, and we've grown. We started under our prior CEO about 1990 at about 400 million, and today we're over 32 billion dollars in assets. So very significant growth. Again, focus on the business owner. That's our core client. And as I mentioned, that commercial banking focus is 80% of our business, 20% is personal, and that's focused again on the owners of the businesses that we finance. So it's a different approach, but we've had great growth and continue to really look to support our clients in a very proactive way.
You're expanding outside of Western Canada. You are coming into Ontario now with a branch that you have planned to open in Mississauga this year.
Yes, we've actually had a strategy to really balance ourselves across Canada. We had a 30-30-30 strategy, so 30 BC, 30 Alberta, and 30 Ontario. And we're very close to that. 10 years ago, we're about 7% of our business was Ontario East, and now it's 27%. So significant growth in Ontario. We see tremendous opportunity there, given the breadth of that economy. The size of the GDP in Ontario, of course, is equal to Western Canada. So we see tremendous opportunity to support the businesses in Ontario.
Tell us about how you've been affected during the pandemic, both in terms of your own operations and running the bank, and also what are you hearing from your clients?
Well, the pandemic, this is profound change in every business and of course, in the banking world as well. What we have done, of course, as many, is work from home. We have about 85% of our staff working from home. We have a very current technology platform, which is really supporting our ability to deliver our services to our clients remotely. So that has been a key way for us to continue to operate very effectively during this pandemic. And of course, our clients all have individual issues that have occurred with the pandemic. Some of them are less affected, some are actually doing more business, but of course some are much less business just given the shutdown of the economy. We're of course coming in to relaunch and see how recovery kind of hits those clients that did have to completely shut down. So, I think it's an evolving situation that we're monitoring very closely.
The irony here is that in April, CWB was chosen as one of the 50 best workplaces in Canada for anyone to work, but you've had to turn on a dime and change the way in which you organize yourselves. How successful has that been? You mentioned that you have a good technology spine, if you like, underlying the business.
Yeah.
Has it been seamless, or have you run into significant problems and not being able to have face-to-face dealings with clients, or not being able to have the people working in a central location?
Well, as much as change is constant, this has been a big change. And I would say that it has worked very well. We haven't run into any challenges that are really significant. We've had the ability to really deliver client services effectively so our investment in our core technology has allowed very significant online presence for how we can transact with the clients. And of course, client meetings are done much more now with these types of calls, video calls. And it's worked as well as one can expect. And I think it's going to inform us on the future. It'll be a different way that we interact, different way that we, transact with clients. And we're in the midst too of a significant launch of digital capabilities at the front end, at the client end. So that is a another opportunity that allows us to do more remote work where people don't have to sign documents. It can be done online. So very significant steps taken that really facilitate our ability to, just really lever technology.
What I'm hearing from many CEOs is that they were moving ahead with a measured plan to become more digital. But what's happened as a result of the pandemic is it's pushed them ahead much more rapidly. And they've developed new products, new ways of interacting with their own employees and with customers, and that there's no going back.
Yeah. Oh, there's no question about that. We actually launched our digital program before the pandemic. We announced it at the end of our Q4 in December, where we have a partnership with our core banking provider, Temenos, out of Switzerland. They're the world's largest provider of core banking systems. And we, of course, have all the current technology from them. So they're kind of a market leader in that digital footprint. So our opportunity going forward, we see as very positive on that digital. And so I would say that as much as this pandemic has, prompted more digital, we're actually on that track already. So we feel very comfortable with our ability to continue to deliver improving access and better ways to interact.
Let's talk for a minute about the impact of the pandemic on your clients. What are you finding? How are they managing? We're now into past the 100th day since the pandemic was declared. For many smaller businesses, they reported that they had perhaps cash reserves for a maximum of 3 months. A lot of these are running low now. What are you hearing from your clients, and how are they managing at this point?
So that was a key process that we put in place right in March with what we call CB has your back. So that was why our commercial account managers to talk to our clients, see how COVID was impacting their business, and put in place strategies and programs to allow them to kind of create some space. So we've had payment deferrals in place for clients, based on what their revenue situation would look like. So those are all underway today, and we have very active of those sort of bespoke payments, client by client, understanding what makes sense for them. So as we look into the next steps, we would probably see, as the economy relaunches, many clients coming where revenue resumes. Some will go back to 100% sooner than others. Some will take some more time. So it'll be a very bespoke process as we individually analyze and determine what's the best steps next. There are programs the federal government has put in place through the BCAP program, such as EDC and BDC have some lending arrangements that are there to provide extra capital to clients as they kind of look at what that game plan is for the relaunch and recovery. So we will assess each client and look at all the different options that are available.
What do you see as the pace of recovery? You're based in Alberta. The Alberta economy has been going through a very difficult period for the last few years, and we've seen energy prices particularly depressed over the course of the pandemic. How do you see the recovery taking place in Alberta, and are there unique problems there that government or the private sector have to address?
Well, I think, if we think about our footprint here, so we have about 31% of our business is in Alberta. And yes, the oil prices certainly cause challenges. Plus, we still have the issue of egress, of the ability to ship oil out of the province. And I mean, that's a continuing issue unrelated to COVID. But the issue with COVID, of course, demand. So it's affected the price of oil, not so much gas, but certainly oil. So we would definitely expect to see probably a longer recovery period on the oil and gas side. That will be clients that are impacted from that. We will be looking at very closely of what does that look like for them, what are their steps, and what are the options. We've had about a 5-year period in Alberta with a slower oil and gas economy. So there are a lot of clients have adjusted to a degree for that slower economy, and then we just have to see what recovery looks like and how how the price works, what are the issues that may come, because there is some disruption in the market, of course, with pricing issues and supply issues with the Saudis and the Russians, and that obviously impacts the world price, but demand is the key issue. And we just have to see as relaunch occurs and what that ultimately impacts the production in Alberta. Obviously the TMX pipeline is a positive as it proceeds. We'll see where the KXL goes. We're interested in that as another egress opportunity. We have Line 3 from Enbridge. So there's many steps in place today that will be there to support the egress of oil and gas. And so the opportunity then is to how does the production story work? And that will come from capital investment and will be dependent on markets.
I guess one of the lessons that we've learned from the pandemic is how uneven it is. It's uneven regionally, it's uneven from sector to sector. And that as we look at the recovery, we're going to be finding the recovery coming back much more quickly in some sectors or some regions than others. And that it will be necessary for governments or for banks and others to have programs in place for a protracted period of time to help people get across the river successfully. What sectors do you see as particularly badly hit? Where would you see recovery taking place more rapidly?
Well, I think transportation has, continued to perform during this period. It can be, the supply chain for, grocery stores and as retail comes back into play, those transportation and logistics areas will, continue to perform. So that's a positive. I think the areas that are being affected the most would be kind of that hospitality side of the economy where, there's less people traveling, so there's less hotel rooms in demand. Restaurants were, of course, locked down. They're pretty much available just for takeout. And all of those will require the economy to, obviously, the relaunch to occur. We need confidence in the ability to travel that would afford people to go back to staying in hotels. And so I expect that might have a more protracted relaunch and recovery process. And then right in the middle of that is, the manufacturing, the distribution, all those different portions of the economy that support, how we live every day. And the fact is that supply chain for everything that we all do every day requires a tremendous number of companies and businesses that are intricately involved in distributing and manufacturing all the requirements we have for day-to-day life. And I think a lot of that will come back. And to your point, it will be staged, and there will be ones that come back more quickly than others.
If you're looking at the Canadian economy as a whole, recently I did a webinar with the Alberta Chamber of Resources, and one of the questions that we polled the audience on was, how long do you think it will take before the Canadian GDP is back to where it was at the beginning of this year? Most people felt that it would be more than 2 years before we were back to where we were at the start of this year. Is that realistic? Or are you hopeful that it may be possible to bring the economy back faster than that?
Well, I think we're always hopeful it comes back faster. It will be, what is the impact on individual businesses, and clearly a growing economy creates opportunity, and growth is really what drives economic performance, and growth comes from there being people out transacting, and I think as we move into relaunch and people become more comfortable, traveling, going to restaurants, buying goods and services, then the economy gains more traction, and then we have businesses that grow and they hire more people and GDP goes up. So that's the goal, obviously, and the hope that occurs more quickly. I guess the challenge that we would have is just, we have the potential for a second wave. So I think we do all need to take care. And I think that's probably where this couple of year issue might come into play for GDP recovering. And I think we're going to rely on our health authorities to, continue to be proactive, provide great advice for us as we think about how we interact and it's obviously a very linked situation, and I think we've got to treat it with tremendous respect and continue to support our ability to grow.
Predicting at the best of times is always a bit challenging and risky. We talk often about the new normal, and no doubt you've been giving thoughts as to what that new normal is going to look like. How do you see Canada's economy, our society changing as a result of this? What sort of pace do you see the changes? What are the permanent impacts of this pandemic, in your view?
Well, I think, so we think about that from flexible work arrangements, for example. So how do people do their job? Are there more ways that they can work from home? Are there different ways that we can transact? Are there different ways that kind of the economy performs? And I think that will evolve. And technology has come into our life, continuingly with a bigger footprint. And, that will promote continued change. And yes, there's likely permanent change that this event has sort of stamped on how we interact in our daily lives. And I guess time will tell. I mean, I think we hear, have seen other events in the past when we think things are going to change dramatically, and ultimately they don't. They kind of go back to normal. And I guess that will be the impact here. We'll see what this means. And I think a lot of the impact will come back from how quickly the health equation is solved and how it's solved. Because that's at the end of the day, the confidence for people to be out in the world and feeling really able to interact and sort of perform as they did in the past.
So before we get to this new normal, we've got a transition period between the lockdown that we're on today with the pandemic there. My sense is the new normal doesn't come until we have a vaccine and wide distribution. We know we've controlled the spread of the disease, but we've made significant progress during the lockdown. We're seeing infection rates trending down dramatically along with death rates. We can't keep the economy, or we can't keep Canadian society on lockdown over the next 2 years or so that it may take to get a vaccine. How do you see the process of reopening taking place? Is the pace that we have today appropriate? Should it be faster? Are we going too quickly? How do we start to decontrol, in your view?
Yeah, that is the ultimate question. Is that, I think at the end of the day, we have to be individually responsible for how we interact. I think we have to be mindful if we've got any symptoms that we respond appropriately. The health equation is number one, and there's no doubt that until there is a vaccine, that will have people having second thoughts, and that'll slow recovery down. So, would we like the economy to speed up and to kind of return to what level of activity we had in the past? And I think the answer is yes, and I would expect that most people would have that answer. But obviously, we want that process to not have a spike in the curve and not end up with a second wave and have it controlled. So, I think it's up to all of us to have the economy continue to perform, be responsible for how we interact, so that we we can keep that curve flat and not have spikes. And I would hope we don't return to another lockdown, but that will be, again, that individual responsibility to make sure that we manage our processes effectively.
As you look at your strategy here, public health comes first in terms of building confidence among your own employees and among customers that it's safe to operate. So that means individual programs for personal protective equipment, protocols for all of your points of contact that you have with people, and a measured recovery in that sense, that it's not something where you're closed one day and then bang, it's back to normal operations the next. That's a strategy then that you would see as being the right business approach across the economy.
Well, it's certainly the approach we've taken, and I think it is appropriate, because I think that is that responsible approach, because there isn't a vaccine as yet. We do have to manage the way we interact.
When you look at lessons learned What lessons has CWB learned as a result of all of this that will help you in terms of building resiliency within the organization or preparing for other crises? It may very well be, it could be a pandemic that was far more serious than this one. It could be a cyber attack. It could be a terrorist attack or other issues. Are there, are there lessons to be drawn out of this that will be helpful in dealing with future crises?
Oh, there's no question. I think every company that would have a business continuity plan, which we've all had, it is a requirement to kind of say, well, what would you do in the event this occurred? Mostly those have been academic tests. And here we are with a real life test of business continuity. And I think, as we think about our plan that we obviously put into place in March, it's gone very well. But there's no question we've learned from it. We've learned from it in terms of, say, the number of licenses we have for video calls, and just ways that our staff can interact more appropriately with, to do their job effectively. We've put in place a program for peripherals for staff to have at home. So if they want to have, get a 2 computer screens, for example, we can accommodate that, an ergonomic chair, appropriate keyboards, things that allow people to be efficient and effective delivering their job remotely. And I think what we'll learn really that process behind business continuity and how we support that. And I think that is going to be one of the biggest lessons learned.
You folks did a webinar earlier in the crisis that was entitled Putting People First, How to Win in a Crisis. What were the lessons from that?
Well, I think it's listening. You want to get feedback from your staff. And I was just, before you and I came on, Perrin, I said we were on a webinar with, it was actually a live video event where we had our executive team talking with staff about our return to work strategy and how we're stating that. And we have a live chat that goes on during the process where people asking questions and we can actively answer them. And then we have an FAQ that will come out after. So I think the biggest lesson learned for people first is to listen to your people. Make sure that you understand what are their issues and you're appropriately responding.
That brings me to the final topic I wanted to touch on, and that's just your view again of the future, both for CWB Financial and also for Canada. It's very easy after the last 3 months to have a very gloomy view of the world and how certainly the immediate future looks. But looking down the road, are you basically optimistic or pessimistic about the future of CWB and about the future of Canada's economy? Where do you feel that you as an institution and we as a Canadian economy go from here?
Well, we're obviously realistic about what the pace of relaunch and recovery might look like, and it will, as we talked before, it will depend on the industry. We're very optimistic about how we're interacting with our clients and what we think our opportunities are in front of us, and we're really leveraging all of our technology investments we've made to deliver that full digital experience to our clients. As I mentioned, that is a big step for us. We're in the midst right now of a balance sheet management exercise where we will change how we calculate capital, which really makes us much more competitive with the large banks in Canada. And we see that as just a tremendous opportunity in front of us. We continue to grow, and our sort of breadth of our footprint into Ontario, I think, is another opportunity for growth. And as we open our first branch in Mississauga, which is coming, we have a kind of a soft launch in July and a full launch in the fall. Looking forward to that. We have 6 businesses today in Ontario, and this will be an augmentation of that footprint in Ontario that we're really looking forward to. So we're very positive on what is in front of us in terms of opportunity. And of course, we think about Canada, and here is this, tremendous country with very skilled, population, highly educated. We sit on, tremendous natural resources in our country. We sit next to the largest economy in the world in terms of our trade partners. We have a lot of opportunity in front of us that we need to manage well, really decide how it is we take advantage of the benefits we bring to the world, and we can deliver that effectively. So our goal is there to facilitate that for the business owners that are our clients, and obviously we would like more clients, and we continue to look to growth and support that, and we look to be very positive for what's next.
On that enthusiastic note, it's a good place for us to end and to leave people with a sense of optimism about the fact that, yes, we've had tough times, but the future looks considerably brighter and we can go forward. And certainly for members of Canada's business community, for the CEOs across the country, it's absolutely critical that they have that sort of a positive view about the future and an enthusiasm. So Chris, we thank you very much for the incredible work that CWB Financial is doing over the course of the pandemic and supporting the economy and supporting your customers. But thank you so much as well for being with us today in the Business of Business.
Well, thank you, Perrin. Really appreciate the opportunity to talk to you. Thank you.